Hey gang, we're on East Long Island at a little town called St. James. And we are at the St. James Episcopal Church Graveyard Cemetery, if you will. And we want to give a shout out to Janet, for suggesting this. She's been wanting me to do this for over a year, maybe 2 years. I've been wanting to do it too. It's just getting here. This is a long way. You got to go through downtown New York and the traffic, and then all the way up Long Island, not to the end, and then to get home I got to go all the way back through that. So I hope you like this. Hope you all like this. Well, I'm here also because I want to be here. We're doing a story. This man, Stanford White, he was an architect, as many of you know. I'm a registered architect, so this is a fun story to tell. And the story we're going to tell is Stanford White was a very talented man, but he was a very eccentric man here in New York. And his little eccentricities got him in some real trouble. So let's take a walk. Let's talk about it. Let's walk to his grave. It's a beautiful little place here. Nice and quiet. We've got a beautiful day. Springtime. And let's talk about this story. It's a pretty infamous story all the way around. Many of you may have heard, but I'll start with just telling you a little bit about Stanford. He was, of course, born here in New York, and it was 1853. His father, Richard Grant White, who was a Shakespearean scholar and really thought he was something else. He was one of those dandies, they would call him, and a guy with not very much money, but man, he was connected. He played it big. He was connected to people like, well, the painter John Lafarge. He was friends with stained glass artist Louis Tiffany, and of course the landscape architect who I'm familiar with, Francis Frederick Law Olmsted. Olmsted, by the way, when I studied architecture, it was my architectural history class that was quite a notable guy. He's got stuff in Chicago. He's an urban designer, and if you look at some of the neighborhoods, like near Brookfield, Riverside, the streets all peel, and there's no straight streets, but what it creates is like triangular boulevards, and it's beautiful. I don't think it really took off. Maybe not as efficient. You know, the developers, they just want to squeeze every house in. And I'm biased because I'm an architect. I have to say that. So, yeah, he was a big shot, playing the whole thing up. And it's interesting because, of course, White became a pretty famous architect himself. He had no formal training. He was just an apprentice, kind of worked his way up. And he went on a tour of Europe in 1878. And I think that in doing so, he was able to learn a lot pretty quick and maybe impress a lot of people with his knowledge of architecture. Well, when he came back to New York here, 1879, actually Manhattan, he joined right up with two other architects, Charles Follen McKim and William Rutherford Mead, to form the firm of McKim, Mead, and White. Very, very famous firm. New York did a lot of stuff. And their practice would define urbanism and the ideals of the American Renaissance. Now, this was the Gilded Age at its peak, and a lot of bad stuff happening with our friend here. Now, before we get into that part of the story, I'll just tell you that he did do some amazing things with this architectural firm. And in 1884, he got married. 22-year-old Bessie Springs Smith. She was a socialite here in New York. And she was pretty prominent here in Long Island. Her family was. Her ancestors had settled in what became Suffolk County in the colonial era, Smithtown, was named for them. And in coming here, this is, I think, next to or part of or Smithtown's. This is it. This is why they're here. The White's couple estate was called Box Hill, and it was a showplace. It was a showplace of what, if any of you have heard of Lux Design Aesthetics, he would have his clients come here, the wealthy clients, and woo them and impress them. And that's how he got a lot of his work. Now their son, they did have one son, Lawrence Grant White, 1887. So the architectural firm grew pretty big, and they did he did a lot of stuff. The Boston Public Library, banks, corporations, newspaper buildings, churches, of course, private elite clubs. He was a big-time member of clubs, these upscale Gilded Age design residences, spoiling the clients. And he did have something to do with designing a little sports center called Second Madison Square Garden. But this guy grew up to be a playboy. And I should say he had that personality. Now when you look at him, you see the old pictures, and those old black and white pictures don't do justice to the hair color. Everybody looks like they have dark hair. He had like red mustache, this big red mustache, red hair, flamboyant. He was real outgoing, real witty. Everybody liked him, and he was a charmer. And like I said, he was very eccentric. So what he did was he had this apartment, multi-story apartment in Manhattan. And I don't know if it was the top, but he had this green room, and it was like the chick room. And he had this velvet swing, and he would seduce young women, actually underage girls. So he was a creep. One of the girls, I know many of you have heard of, was named Evelyn Nesbit. Right? Famous Evelyn. Yeah. He got her mom's permission to be her, guardian. Yeah, I'm going to watch over Evelyn. Why? Well, just because I'm a nice guy, and I'm going to look out for her, and I'm going to get her set up with... Evelyn was a chorus girl, and the photographer's model. And, I'm going to help her. Well, he sure helped her. He helped her. He helped himself, because he got her up in that little room, or big room, I should say, and he poured the champagne, and he poured something else into that champagne, we think, which he did often, knock her out. And then he raped her. That's right. Yeah, not a good guy. Now, through thick or thin of that whole incident, they stayed together. They were lovers for a little bit. He continued on. They drifted apart, the two of them, and, things kind of went on. So what happened was he ended up, other girls, and he just kind of, and she got married. In 1905, she married this guy named Harry Kendall Thaw from Pittsburgh, a millionaire. I call him, you ever hear the term silver spoon? My dad used to always say that. I taught my boys that, silver spoon. Little rich boy, didn't have to work for nothing, got the family money, and he was a weird guy. Now, if you look at pictures of this guy, he is just freaky and creepy looking. Creepy. And I'm sure she married him for the money. So they got married, and they were you know, they would go out on the town, and there was a rivalry. Well, not a rivalry. There was a rivalry with Thaw with White. He saw him as a rival, and White was like, man, you're just like an ugly pug. He called him Pug because of his ugly baby face. And it really made him mad. And White would orchestrate to keep him out of all the elite clubs. So the guy was like really mad already. And then Evelyn tells him this night, they're going out to dinner, Madison Square Garden, where White is, hey, let me tell you what happened with the two of us. Oh man, Thaw went nuts. So Thaw goes up to White's table, he's sitting right there, and he pulls out a pistol, aims right at his face, and bam, right in the face, and then another one, 2 to the head, killed instantly. I think third shot to his left shoulder, right in front of everybody, and everybody thinks, hey, what's going on here? Is this like a play, a prank? Something fun, something cool? I don't know. So police come. Evelyn's like, oh my God, she's going into hiding. The media, it's a sensation, crime of the century, right? And now he's got to figure out what he's going to do. They try to go for this big insanity defense and had him in prison. Now, while he was in prison, he got special treatment because, you know, the guy's got money. He was given a formal table setting in his cell. His meals were catered by Delmonico's restaurant. He slept in a brass bed. Yes, he slept in a brass bed in prison. And he didn't have to wear a prisoner's uniform, and he got his daily ration of champagne. Go figure, the warden was bribed. It's always about the money, guys. It is reported that he had heard heavenly voices from his jail cell. The girls from above were singing to him. All the girls that I guess he thought that Stanford White had. And they were singing, "Ah, we love you, Mr. Thaw." Anyway, he thought the public, he was going to be like this hero. Sorry about the voice. Anyway, they were singing just like that. That was what it was like. So he's in prison, and he's got this insanity defense going. He's insane. Take him in, lock him up in the hospital, and then a few months later or whatever, it's like, you know, working all the appeals and lawyers, and it's like, oh, he's not insane. And then another jury says, let him out. So he gets out. So White's dead. Evelyn Nesbit, by the way, was bribed into testifying on his behalf. Up to $1 million. She didn't get jack. Of course, once he got, once the verdict, they like cut her out of everything. Now, the creepiest part is that, they get divorced, and it's not long after, but there's an incident. Thaw gets himself in trouble again. I think the guy's name was Gump. Some kid. And he talks to the family. It's kind of like a Stanford White move, except it was a boy. And he got the boy to meet him somewhere. He was going to help him. And they meet somewhere. I think it was in Philadelphia. Anyway, and they meet, and then Thaw attacks him sexually and aggressively. And the boy's he hurts the boy. It's like a big incident. Thaw goes on the run. They catch him. And what does he do? He tries to bribe the kid's family. $500,000. $500,000 if you drop the charges, blah, blah, blah. Go figure, right? Didn't work. So he ends up jumping out of prison or the hospital, and just in the end, basically, there was all kinds of monkey business with him getting out, and in the end, another jury said, oh, you're not insane, and the lawyers, money, and he's out. Anyway, that's kind of the general overview of the story. You've got a woman in the middle, and you've got two crazy, creepy guys. And we are at one of their graves right now. This is the family plot for Stanford White. And right in the middle there, you see the big stone. That's his. By the way, Thaw died of a heart attack in Miami, 1947. He was 76, and he did leave Evelyn Nesbit. He had $1 million left, I guess. He left her 10 grand, which was pretty stingy. But Evelyn continued her career. She married a dance partner, and they were in California. She got out of here. She died in a nursing home in Santa Monica, California, January 17th, 1967. She was 82. And I was going to do her grave also, but she's at the Holy Cross Cemetery, and let me just warn you, if you go there, they got cameras everywhere. You just pull your cell phone out and they're like, "What are you doing?" So anyway, California's tough. I don't know why, they're just freaky. I think some of the family members complain of famous people there. So a few of those cemeteries are kind of off limits, but it's a beautiful stone. Here's his name up here. And I did bring the torch. I did remember the torch this time, guys. Are you impressed? All right, let's see if it's pretty high up. So there you go, Stanford White, architect. And I guess that's his dates or date. And his wife, Bessie S. Smith, is here. And I think, look at this on top. This is so architectural. Isn't that beautiful? Let's see if I can light it up. It's like a clam with all kinds of ornate flowers and vines and things going on. Well, let's take a quick look here at some of the other stones. All the family members. Now look at this one. This is really beautiful. Isn't that something? All right, so let's start over here. This is Robert. Robert Winthrop White. And then we have Claire Nicholas White. We have a 2002, he died, and she died just a couple years ago, 2020. Their daughter, Natalie, passed away in 75, so 57 to 75, died young. Let's see who else we have. Frederick Lawrence, Peter White, 1917, 2009, and then I believe that would be his wife, 1920 to 2013. Jihan, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. There is a groundstone here. Matthew Killian White, 57 to 1990. John Chandler White, 1924 to 1989. Okay, Lawrence Grant White, architect, September 26, 1887, died in 1956. And his wife Laura Chandler, 1887 to 1984, wow. She lived a long time. And there's a couple of more beautiful stones here. This is Sarah M. White. Sarah O.P. 1928 to 2011. Look at these beautiful, beautiful design. Love that. Yeah, I'll let you read that. Too small for me to read holding the camera, but widen it out here. So there it is. That's the story of Stanford White, gang. From New York. Rest in peace, all the Whites. Rest in peace.